I never imagined I'd be sitting here recording a video like this, but here I am, giving you a breakdown of what's happened and answer the question, what does this mean for New Direction Tackle customers? The past few months have been painful, confusing, and deeply upsetting. I know some people feel this should have been handled privately, and I understand that view, but from my perspective, it felt important to share my experience so people could better understand what happened from the inside. Before I begin, I want to be clear. This is my personal account based on my own experiences and understandings at the time. To avoid unnecessary harm or confusion, I will not mention company names beyond New Direction Tackle, nor will I use real names of individuals involved outside of New Direction Tackle. Many of you already know that New Direction Tackle has made the difficult decision to close. From the messages I've received, it's clear that there are still unanswered questions. What follows is not a legal judgment or definitive account, but my side of the story, what I personally experienced and witnessed during my time there. I joined ND in August 2020 to help build its social media presence. I was proud of that opportunity. Over time, my role grew and I eventually became account manager. I was involved in films, product launches, and projects I genuinely believed in. For me, ND was never just a job. The people there became close friends. We shared successes and setbacks, stress and laughter. Over time, it began to feel more like a second family, which is why what followed was so difficult to process. Over the last couple of years, issues began to arise that caused increasing concern. Stock arriving from our manufacturing partner in China, who I refer to as Harry, repeatedly failed internal quality checks. From my perspective, it was unclear whether these issues were due to negligence, miscommunication, or other factors. What I can say is that the volume of consistency of the problems caused serious concern within the team. Despite some claims made publicly, my understanding at the time was that Harry did not hold legal ownership of New Direction Tackle. While he was involved in the brand's early development, my understanding was that he held no shares and was contracted to manage manufacturing as well as aspects of the website and apps. Internally, we were reluctant to release products we believed did not meet acceptable standards. There were disagreements about how those issues should be handled, particularly around timelines, costs, and quality expectations. Regardless, Harry would then continue to add the faulty products to the ND website and other third-party sites. Examples discussed internally included faulty bait boat plugs, damage appearing in sleeping bags, smart link systems that did not perform as expected, and the wrong types of glue used to attach magnets and other parts. Alongside these operational issues, concerns were raised about the company finances. From what I was shown and understood at the time, significant sums of money appeared to have been transferred into accounts linked to Harry. The figure discussed internally was in the region of £600,000, though I cannot personally verify the final amount or the full context of those transactions. These concerns led Ben, who was the legal owner and full shareholder of ND, to take steps to protect the business and limit further potential damage. Behind the scenes, efforts were made to find solutions, including discussions around alternative manufacturing partners. At some point, information about those discussions must have become known outside the company. In April, access to key systems was suddenly lost. We found ourselves locked out of the website, emails, and social media platforms. Stock was moved without our involvement, and inventory was relocated to warehouses we had no control over. We were able to regain access to social media, but the domain and email systems remained inaccessible for some time. During this period, we chose not to speak publicly. That decision wasn't about self-protection. It was about customers. There were concerns that the public escalation could lead to services or apps being disrupted, which would have directly affected users. Before all this, we also became aware that a new company was registered, listing Ben as a director without his knowledge. From what I personally saw, he requested to be removed as soon as he became aware of this. Because Harry is based overseas, it appeared that someone based in the UK or Europe was needed to establish that company. Shortly after, another colleague, who I refer to as Lloyd, became involved as a director. From my perspective, this marked a significant breakdown in trust. Ben later made the decision to remove Lloyd from ND, believing that company policies had been breached and that there was a conflict of interest due to the involvement with a competing business, while still employed by ND. As ND attempted to re-establish communication with customers, a new domain was created. Meanwhile, Harry and Lloyd launched a separate brand that closely resembled ND in branding and product range, which led to confusion among businesses and customers. Traffic from the original website appeared to be redirected to this new site. Products similar to ND's were sold with changes that appeared to obscure original branding. In some early shipments, ND manuals were reportedly still included, and areas where logos had been removed were visible. Watching Ben deal with the emotional and financial strain of this period was extremely difficult. Much of his time was spent gathering information, attending meetings, and managing growing legal costs. By August, customers began reporting loss of access to certain app-based systems, including autopilot features. At that point, we were advised that speaking publicly was appropriate. The support and understanding we received from many customers meant more than I can properly express. Some customers compared service levels between the two companies. At the time, I didn't feel able to respond. What I can say now is that Harry and Lloyd had handled a significant portion of New Direction Tackle's customer service. Any issues experienced may reflect that structure, rather than the efforts of the remaining UK team. By this stage, only 3 of us remained in the UK, trying to support customers while dealing with the emotional reality of watching the company unravel. ND was never just a job to us. It was personal. Seeing it come to an end under these circumstances was devastating. Legal costs increased, revenue slowed, and with stock held overseas by key individuals based outside the UK, meaningful legal progress became increasingly difficult. We were eventually able to recover the ND domain through legal channels, and it was returned to the company. Further concerns were raised around data protection. Evidence was gathered suggesting that ND customer data had been accessible through another platform. Customers reported being able to log in using existing ND credentials. This was reported to the appropriate authorities, and customers were advised, following guidance, to report the matter themselves. After that, access to those systems appeared to change. It has since become apparent that the other business has announced a rebrand. While I can't state their reasons as fact, my understanding is that trademark-related issues may have affected their ability to continue using that name, meaning a rebrand became necessary. Ultimately, ND no longer had the resources to continue. Ben made the incredibly difficult decision to close New Direction Tackle. Myself, Mark, and Jamie lost not just our jobs, but something we had invested years of our lives into. To the customers, I want to say this sincerely. I'm sorry. I know how frustrating and disappointing this situation has been. I wish we had been able to communicate more clearly, but the circumstances and the advice we were operating under made that difficult. We are deeply grateful for the loyalty and patience shown to ND over the years. This was never the outcome we wanted. So what does that mean for ND customers in terms of support? Sadly, and it genuinely pains me to say this, it means that there will be no further customer support available through New Direction Tackle. ND simply no longer has the finances, infrastructure, or resources required to provide replacements, repairs, or continued services. I know how frustrating and upsetting this will be, and I completely understand the anger many of you may feel. All I would ask is that any frustration is not directed towards the remaining ND team who tried to protect customers and the business under extremely difficult circumstances. In my personal view, the responsibility for how the situation unfolded lies elsewhere, with those whose actions and decisions contributed to ND being placed in an impossible position. Despite everything, I'm proud of what ND created. The products, the innovation, the people, all of it mattered. I wouldn't be who I am today without Ben, Mark, Jamie, and everyone who stood with ND. The company may be gone, but the relationships and lessons will remain. That will always feel like family. So for the last time, I'm Simon from New Direction Tackle. Thank you for the journey, and thank you for the support.